Hi, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you to this episode of All Things Lean with your host, Madhulika Rajahan. In our last episode, we talked about the silent role of fear in decision making. In this episode, we will talk about horror vacui, the fear of emptiness. Horror vacui, a Latin derived term, means fear of emptiness. At first glance, we may identify with that fear as being perfectly natural. It could be the fear of not refueling at the pump before we set out on a long drive, or not having a filling breakfast before a long busy day. Many of us who shop on Amazon may have noticed that when our cart is empty, the caption reads, "Your shopping cart lives to serve." Give it purpose. Fill it with books, games, DVDs, etc. They are appealing to our horror vacui. But as designers, we need to understand that such a fear may sound like not a bad thing. However, we want to look at horror vacui differently. For a long time, it was a driving force in design. Although we have moved to the opposite extreme now for the moment, it's important to understand how you can use or avoid horror vacui to enhance your own web designs. Modern design prefers simplicity in layout. From Apple to Google, clean, simple layouts with plenty of white spaces are the preferred way to deliver content. However, it hasn't been always like this. If you went back in time, say about 50 to 100 years, designs were far busier. Adverts from brands like Coca-Cola barely included an inch of white space. Your eyes might have strained to notice things back then. Nowadays, we are used to being surrounded by clean interfaces. Nothing is nicer than landing on a web page, flipping to a catalog page, or walking past a good store and seeing an element stand out. The simplicity is reassuring, especially in so busy an age where information is flying quickly and furiously. In our modern frenetically paced world, there is comfort and tranquility in seeing simple designs. The concept of horror vacui, named as such, appears to have arisen during the Victorian era. It was first used as a criticism of interior design in architecture and wasn't considered to be very kind of compliment. However, the term has Latin roots and the concept turned up in time of Aristotle. If we surf or stroll to paintings throughout history, we can see exactly what this fear involved. Painters such as Bosch, Bruegel, and Duet showed this need to fill up the design space with elements. People, animals, buildings, trees, etc. They made busyness their business. If we look at Jean Duet's The Fall of Babylon, we can barely pick out any background. The engraving is almost 100% action. Actors and set with the tiniest amount of sky in the top left corner, and even that is full of tumultuous clouds. Ironically, Leonardo da Vinci had his finger on the problem long before it became a problem. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. His peers had other ideas. It was Mario Praz in 1896, an Italian-born critic of art and literature, who used horror vacui to assail the Victorian fetish of cluttering up designs. The people using the phrase felt that interior design was beginning to overwhelm living and working spaces, and that the huge volumes of visual information applied in the field were beginning to reduce the appeal of such spaces. Rich and overloaded with design, these filled spaces weren't so distracting and uncomfortable to be around. They also took a lot of work to create. Gradually, this understanding of horror vacui became the norm in many fields. Designers had found the magic key to freedom. outwent the sugary, background saturating design tendencies of the Victorian, Georgian, and Baroque eras. In came a new sense of proportion and representation. Designers were starting to understand their users' sense more, and they were starting to see that elements could stand out better if they had space to set them off, rather than be crushed in amid another elements. Like silence between musical notes, the gaps between elements could be made to work. The value of nothing, the white spaces. Modern offices and homes are often minimalistic to reduce visual distraction. Print adverts and web designs have followed the same trend. However, not all marketing departments have tapped this vital resource. Have you got any junk mail lying around, anything from a supermarket or a clothing store offering discounts? If you have, pick it up and have a quick look at the literature. Do you notice how busy it is? Whoever designed that special offer flood sheet seems to have been adamant about presenting you with as many options as possible. There is nothing wrong with showing off bargains until we approach it from a designer's point of view. Why do they do this? Well, we currently relate lots of choice with cheap or bargain. While when we are presented with fewer choices, we tend to assume that things will be more expensive. Think of a posh restaurant or a window of an expensive store. It is the complete opposite of the era previous to when the horror vacui concept was born. In the Victorian, Baroque, and Georgian eras, more was better because it meant affluence. Now, in a time where all that surrounds us is more, we perceive the opposite. Less is better. That's mostly true for Occidental cultures. Not all cultures perceive emptiness versus fullness the same way. Consequently, we need to look at our users to understand if their cultural take on less is more matches what we find in the West. As web designers, we have already learned a great deal about what works in a design. Certainly, when we surf the internet, we can pick out the good designs from the bad. A large part of what makes those not so good designs ineffective and unattractive lies in the relationship our eyes draw between horror vacui and our perception of value. Basically, it works like this. High density clutter equals mass market bargain basement discount, whereas low density minimalistic equals classy, sophisticated, and valuable. The secret of reducing the density in a design has to do with how much white space we include as we zero in on showing those more valuable elements. Remember, white space does not have to be white. We can use any color to surround our main elements or make smaller islands of several still important elements. Consequently, the user's eye goes to the elements while being calmed by the white spaces. The cons and pros of horror vacui. Designers may find themselves under pressure from clients to use up white space. The client wants the most content for their cash and will heap ideas onto the design in order to get that perceived value for money. To them, the more the merrier, or they might see the design surface as a lifeboat for their message. As much as they might think you ruthless, it's worth pointing out to your clients that horror vacui is, in most cases, a bad idea. Tell them the truth, that the public have come to the conclusion that there is relationship between high levels of white space and product quality. Products marketed with large amounts of white space often command a significant market premium. The designer's job is to create return on investment for their clients. A frank discussion about perceptions of white space can often help the client justify backing down on their demands for horror vacui in your designs. However, it's worth remembering that horror vacui in design is not always a bad thing. Businesses with a sales strategy based on low prices, discounts, volume shifting, etc., such as Walmart or your local dollar store, for example, may actually be better served by designing busy designs. If you're trying to convey affordability rather than luxury, then you may need to cut down on the white space that you deliver in your design. Using other tools to manage horror vacui. Although we have the ultimate tool for combating horror vacui in design or white space, we can take advantage of other consideration. For example, Hicks law. The time it takes your user to make a decision depends on the number of options you provide. Narrow down the essential options that are relevant to your design goal. Accentuate them on your main page and relegate non-essential ones to the other pages via link buttons. Control. This involves knowing your users. Ask yourself, who are they and what do they want from your design? Is your website appealing to people of a certain skill set or industry background? Then comes flexibility, usability trade-off. Hit a good balance between flexibility and usability. Remember, the more you adapt your design to make sure that more users can access it effectively, the size of your design will increase, potentially overwhelming users with options. Making one size fits all can be counterproductive. Think out ways of tailoring it to be more streamlined. Performance load. Don't give your users work. This means stepping back as designers and appreciating what our users have to do with using our design. Don't make a pleasurable user experience anything like completing a tax form. A signal to noise ratio. Unnecessary elements in a design create noise, jarring the user's senses while distracting and detracting from the effectiveness of the essential elements. Do you really need those jarry stars around your designs, like a star feature? Then comes Occam's razor. Choose the simple over the complex. Do not multiply elements unless absolutely necessary. The eye strains at the complex. The 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto's principle, which states that 80% of users only use 20% of a product's given features. Focus on what are vital elements. Leave the non-essential or nice to know ones aside. Progressive disclosure. Lead your users through the actions you want them to take in gradual steps. By gently increasing the detail on subsequent screens, you will avoid drowning them in information. Direct manipulation. Using this means that we present our design to our user in much the same way as we might provide a steering wheel for a car. The user can interact with visible objects through visible actions in a transparent interface. Then we have the last one called chunking. Be direct and concise with the content you are showing. You can divide it up into smaller pieces of information. Users will be able to digest these far more easily than a single chunk making up of many parts. Let's have a look at the takeaways. Horror vacui is the fear of emptiness, an age-old concept. Evidence of this fear is visible throughout history in busy, element-saturated work of past masters of the brush and canvas. The compulsion to populate a design with as many elements as it could hold appeared in interior design too. Rich, labor-intensive details once dominated design surfaces. Finally, one critic identified the problem in regard to Victorian interior design. Horror vacui became a term used to chide interior designers who had taken it upon themselves to drown their designs with elements. Overloaded, busy design distract, confuse, confound, and even upset users. Less is more would grow to become an anthem or a catchphrase in modern design. Minimalism in the marketplace denotes classiness and style, as seen in high quality magazines with low image density, as opposed to the high image density flyers we receive as junk mail. Our eyes tend to tell us that the value of a lone item in an image is greater than 100 clustered ones. As web designers, we have a powerful weapon in our arsenal against horror vacui. We can make our designs more accessible, more user-friendly, and more valuable by using white space. White space enables us to set off our elements against a calming background, boosting the worth of the elements in the process. We can use white space in conjunction with a number of other concepts, ranging from Hicks' law and Occam's razor to progressive disclosure and chunking. Ultimately, we need to serve our users best by knowing what they want in our design. We also need to assess white space, also known as negative space, as being a huge positive force. It will spotlight the standout, sending elements helping us to reach our goal. A good user experience overall. With this, we come to an end to this episode of All Things Lean. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment in the comment section on what you'd like to hear more. Until next time, this is your host, Madhulika Rajahan, signing off. Have a wonderful day ahead.